All right, good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Serra. I'm the executive director of the New Jersey State League of Municipalities. I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn session. Just a quick reminder, as I just mentioned, this session is being recorded, so please make sure to keep your microphones muted, throughout the presentation. You certainly don't want to, have us overhear any personal conversations. I think we've all experienced that in Zoom at some point. So let's see if we can avoid that if we can. Today we have two attorneys and friends of the league who are experts in the field of cannabis. Ron Mondello and John D. Williams. We're here to discuss the intoxicating hemp-derived products and beverages law. A brief overview of Public Law 2025, Chapter 215, regarding intoxicating cannabinoids and taxation. Before we get started, and I hand it over to Ron and John, a few housekeeping meetings. As I mentioned, the session is being recorded, so please, please keep that in mind. And keep your microphones muted to avoid any interruptions. If you have any questions, our preference is if you could drop them in the chat box. We'll be keeping an eye on it, as will John and Ron, and they'll do their best to answer the questions as they come in. If they're part of if they're part of what's about to be answered, they'll highlight it. If not, we'll try to get to any unanswered questions at the end. But we'll do our best to answer questions throughout the presentation. Lori Buckaloo, the league's deputy executive director, just put in the chat box a link to the law if anyone needs a copy of it. And I do know that there's an opportunity afterwards to get a copy of the presentation. And I think Ron has that on a slide in the slide deck and a little bit on. So before I turn it over, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Ron and John for doing this. They've been a great resource for the league and for municipalities as they navigate this relatively new area of municipal cannabis law, and they are the experts at it. So I appreciate them for lending us their expertise and their insights into the new law. Ron, John, thank you, much appreciated, and I know this is going to be a great program. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ron. Thank
All
you very
right.
much.
Okay, Mike, thanks so much. Really appreciate the league's invitation, your invitation, especially Lori helping us out. John and I are very much into this topic, and you will see why in a couple of minutes. I want to thank everybody for attending. Up on the screen is my contact information. Although it says municipal cannabis attorney, I am now municipal cannabis and hemp attorney, but I've got a cell phone there and my office telephone. Please, I love talking cannabis. I love talking hemp. So anytime you have a question, feel free to pick up the phone and give myself and a couple minutes. John is going to introduce himself and spend a minute or so talking about what he's going to reach today. So, all right. Let me click the next slide. If you want a copy of the presentation, because some of this material is a bit heavy, and John and I have worked really hard to try to really break it into small modules, and hopefully we can put it into English so you could say, I got it. I understand where we're going with this. All right, so certainly, as Mike indicated, I've been a long-standing member of the New Jersey League of Municipalities. I'm a member of the New Jersey Institute of Local Government Attorneys, and if you don't know what that is, those are the attorneys that advise the league. I'm a trustee with them, and if there are any attorneys out there that don't belong to the New Jersey Institute of Local Government Attorneys, and you do this type of work for municipalities, I would strongly suggest that you consider becoming a member. I run the listserv. We've got about 275 members. When you have a question, it gets answered by folks that have decades and decades and decades of experience representing municipalities. See, these are some of the organizations that I belong to. I have a unique background with respect to this subject. I was a councilman in two towns, borough attorney, zoning and planning board, and I was a zoning and planning board chairman and member in several towns. I represented Jersey City as the cannabis attorney. Previously, Hoboken, Atlantic City, and these are just some of the other towns that I have the pleasure of either representing currently or I have represented in the past. So we are building the plane as we are flying it. This was especially true with cannabis, and I'm sure John's going to agree at some point. It is really true with the intoxicated hemp derived products and beverages. There seems to be legislation coming out every couple months, changing deadlines, changing descriptors or limits as to how much intoxicating THC cannabinoids can be in the product. And my son tells me it's very important that you know the bands that I like. So in this order, it would be the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead. And I know that John likes those bands as well. That's why we get along so well. So I am I am now going to turn it over to John for his intro.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. Yeah, I would say that plane is not quite stabilized yet for any of us. We're going on 9 years now. So, quick background: I'm going to my 31st year of practice. The entire time I've been in practice, I've practiced in alcoholic beverage law. I've done a wide variety of practice, but since coming out of an appointment from 2015 to 2018 as county counsel up here in Sussex County, where my primary office is, I've been concentrating in ABC law and then cannabis law. So I've been in ground floor, starting with hemp licenses in New York, actually, but then coming over to New Jersey, all areas of cannabis. That would be hemp, cannabis, marijuana, even industrial hemp. So it's been a wild ride, and we all know that. But I'm also for a few years now of counsel at Porzio, Bromberg, and Newman, where they have both Porzio compliance services, cannabis compliance aspect, and then also the primary law firm handling both ABC and cannabis matters. So, Ron, I don't know if you wanted me to go into my brief overview of the statute now, or
So, yeah, why don't I just flip this slide? I'm just going to mention if you didn't pick up on this. So John represents the private businesses, and I only represent municipalities in this cannabis space. And ironically, I do not smoke pot, cannabis, marijuana. I prefer a Macallan's 18 any day over pot. I'm not going to comment as to which John may favor. All right, John, why don't you give a quick overview of what we're going to talk about?
if you have a good Macallan, I'll bring this cigar. So, listen, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to try to give an overview of the statute and where we stand because I understand the issues that are important to you all. I've worked with municipalities, I've lectured all over regarding the subject, but at the league. And then I've also represented the businesses who comply and those that don't, and that you try to enforce against. And the results there, as we all know, are very mixed. But essentially, with the new statute, let me start by saying that if we talk about hemp, but I'm doing air quotes if my camera's on or not, that includes hemp as in loose flowers, they call it, right? Bud or pre rolls, what we used to call joints. Hemp products, which would be the gummies and the vapes and the like, and then hemp beverages. All of those we could classify under the term hemp. What the new law does is it redefines hemp with new THC limits and standards. And then it distinguishes what is lawful hemp from unlawful hemp, which can be lawful if it's licensed and regulated, just like marijuana, right? If it's licensed. The law outlines rules of compliance, enforcement, and other related issues, which we'll go into. The primary one for your concern is taxation. And bottom line is, as of last Monday, April 13th, hemp, all three of those products, they could be manufactured, distributed, or sold lawfully in New Jersey. In other words, if it does not exceed the new THC limits or fail to comply with the new standards. Okay, so that means that CBD stores, smoke shops, and gas stations can still sell hemp in your municipality. And that is meaning lawful hemp, not exceeding the threshold or standards. It can be sold and it's regulated under the New Jersey hemp program.
John, let me jump in and ask you a question because there's a lot of
Give me give
stuff.
let me just do
All
the
right.
distinction and then come back, okay? Because what I'm trying to not do is get into 0.3% now. So just to finish, but if you're exceeding the new limits and standards, that means that hemp is either unlawful or it's lawful if licensed. So it's permissible then if it's licensed, just like marijuana. So if it's unlicensed, it's marijuana. No sale by CBD stores, smoke shops, and gas stations. And if it's licensed, then it's capital C, cannabis, and those sales are allowed by CRC licensed businesses, particularly retail dispensaries. Last thing is one carve out. That's the intoxicating hemp beverages. Sales are allowed in liquor stores until May 30th. And right now, at an unrestricted level, as of May 30th, the level is restricted, and then as of November 13th, they're not allowed at all. It would only be in dispensaries. Okay, so I don't want to get too much into the definitions. I wanted to give you that overview because that's always been the problem that we've seen and Ron and I have encountered is it's difficult for us all to make these distinctions. So that's it.
So, John, what these folks are most interested in, what can be sold and what cannot be sold in the smoke shops, in the gas station convenience stores, in the vape shops, because
Okay.
I'm thinking that most of those places are not selling hemp. They are
Okay.
selling intoxicated hemp derived products that can really actually get you quite intoxicated. So,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to do it by the threshold for purposes of enforcement. That's both civil and within civil, I include like health departments, even though I guess it's quasi criminal, but let's call it civil and criminal enforcement. We should speak to the thresholds, not the effect of the substance. Okay, we should get specific. But the threshold, what it says in the new law, the new threshold, as I call it, is that if it exceeds 0.3% total THC and exceeds 4 milligrams of that total THC per container, then it's verboten. Then you got to license it, sell it in a dispensary, or if it's in a drink, it could be sold in dispensaries and for a limited time at this point, liquor stores. Okay, so going back to the stores that have been the issue since the loophole, this is an attempt to close the loophole. When we talk about what that threshold is, it's essentially prohibited. Okay, I call it near hemp, which is seemingly only clever to me, but I think of like near beer. It's sort of saying, yeah, they can keep, they can sell out of those stores. Maybe it's my ABC experience, but all they can sell is near beer. So what you should be looking for is, regardless of the product, hemp product, and again, beverages are not able to be sold in those stores at all as of last Monday. But you go into a smoke shop, you go into a store, you should be seeing a package with either a description on it or it actually has a QR code to a certificate of analysis. And the total THC, and this is the key, the total THC, which means it's kitchen sink. You test anything now with a T in front of it. No longer is it limited to THC Delta 9. It is anything with a T in front of it. That total THC can exceed 3%. So it's all the ingredients that are tetrahydrocannabinol, THC. Um, that
0.3%, right?
yeah, if
0.3.
that exceeds 3%, 0.3%, excuse me, and then the package itself or the container, which is strictly defined in the law, it's broad enough that it covers different variables that are not, we're not able to go into now. But if Ron had mentioned it, we'll do this. We'll do another one of these lunch and learns, and we're going to be writing an article for the magazine. But the total container shouldn't exceed 4 milligrams. So it's a
So,
much broader definition and a limit of how much can be sold.
so John, I see already we've got some questions. I'm going to try to see if I can answer them. Putting my email in the chat, that one's easy. Who's testing the products sold in the smoke shops and gas stations to make sure it's under the intoxicating levels? Nobody. If you go into those stores, take a look at the package. It'll tell you what is eventually going to happen, in my opinion, if a municipality wants to enforce the new laws, because they're not allowed to be selling these intoxicating hemp derived products. You may have to ask for a certificate of analysis, and there are fines if they don't have it. And if otherwise, you can take the product or get the product and have it tested. There are a lot of licensed cannabis testing labs that are to some extent twiddling their fingers because they don't have enough cannabis to test. I'm sure the municipality can work something out for a reasonable fee to have those products tested. Anything you want to add to that, John?
Yeah, just that there's a second half of the equation because we tend to just think about that primary notion of we're now testing for all THC, which, by the way, to state the obvious, that's the intoxicating cannabinoid within the cannabis plant. When I made the distinction of threshold and standards, you also cannot have a product. This is not any limit. This is in general, meaning no 0.3%. You can't have a product that has artificial cannabinoids, chemically synthesized or manufactured cannabinoids, or products that exceed the threshold that we discussed, but they're combined with other cannabinoids that have similar effects or are marketed to have similar effects. Now, don't try to memorize those standards. What we're talking about that we probably all have familiarity with is a lot of the sort of whack-a-mole gamesmanship that, if you remember back to things like Spice, I'm sure law enforcement does. They're It should be naturally derived from the plant and should not exceed that limit. And you can't have combinations and artificial synthesis. I'm sorry to say, from just a point of realism, that that's where the rubber hits the road for all of us.
So there's another question I'm going to jump into here. If the THC limits are within allowance, can a municipality collect a 2% cannabis tax if they have an ordinance? So that is specifically for intoxicating hemp-derived beverages. You
Yeah.
cannot get 2% on the gummies and the dream drops and all the other stuff that the convenience stores, smoke shops, and vape shops were selling and are no longer allowed to sell if they exceed the limits that we're talking about. And from a practical point of view, they're not selling the stuff that that comes within that legal limit. They're selling the intoxicating stuff, the stuff that's over the limit that John just described, the 0.3%. I don't know. We encountered something gummies labeled proprietary. How do we know if this is cannabis? Ask for a certificate of analysis. They have to have a certificate of analysis. You're going to see that there is some legislation that you can charge them $100 if they don't have a legislation. John, I got another chart. I mean, another slide up here, and I just wanted to. So how are the feds trying to fix this loophole? The appropriations bill. That's what it's called, effective November 12th, 2026. And it reverses this loophole, this Farm Bill's legislation of hemp and its derivatives. And the only thing I want to point out on this slide is that a bipartisan bill was filed on January 10, 2026 to delay the above year for 2 years, for 2 years to November 12th, 2028. Whether or not it gets passed, I would speculate that and John, you'll know better than me, the ABC lobby may have something to do with this because it is a $5 billion industry annually in Texas right now, the intoxicated hemp-derived beverages. Man, that's a lot of beverages. So we'll keep an eye on this.
Yeah, and there's really at the national level, which we should watch because there's parts of this law that are tethered to the national law, meaning that if the definition gets extended at the federal level, which has a similar definition, by the way, a kitchen sink, throw in all the THC cannabinoids. What's another cannabinoid? CBD. It just, reduces inflammation. CBG, CBN, it helps you sleep. All the THC cannabinoids are thrown in and total THC is tested. Well, it is such a broad definition that the industry that's developed over the last 9 years, 8 or 9 years, which is estimated at, I don't know, 85 billion nationally or whatever, and it includes things like pet products for dogs with hip dysplasia and whatnot, and also sleep gummies, which do not make you high. No intoxicating effect, but contain THC as a catalyst. And also the other one everyone likes is old people with the creams that reduce inflammation. They've caught those products in the net. So there is lobbying at the federal level from a well-developed market for some hemp products that think that the net is too broad. You know, you get the idea. The definition's too expansive to throw in everything and not have distinctions. And the other thing I will say is, with respect only to the beverages, and they are intoxicating, but so is ethyl alcohol, and we know how to deal with that, all the way down to people on the phone who deal with it at the municipal level. That's a completely different train on a completely different track. And you're right, there's movement at the national level. And right now, it may extend beyond November 13th that you see them within your liquor stores in your municipality, which, Ron, should we address that issue now at taxation rather
So
than try to,
let me see if I can get, because this is a complicated area. So let me
yeah.
start with another question. Is the proposed delay for just beverages or everything sold at smoke shops and gas stations? Let me take a crack at it and then off to you.
Go ahead.
So I believe that it's just for the beverages, and those intoxicated hemp-derived products are not allowed to be sold at the smoke shops and the gas stations, period, as of April 13th of this year. I think what's behind the delay or extension are the ABC, the very wealthy liquor stores that have aisles and aisles of intoxicated hemp-derived beverages. Go ahead, to you, John.
No, you're absolutely right. And by the way, I may have misspoke and miswrote it, but I think it's actually May 31st, but excuse me, you get the idea. So yeah, but
All right, we got another.
you're right. You're right.
Okay.
There's not an extension to November 13th or May 31st for intoxicating hemp and intoxicating hemp products typically sold at retail and smoke shops and gas stations. Not at all.
And speaking of a brilliant municipal attorney, I see that Mr. Buzak has a question. He is a long-standing member of the New Jersey Institute of Local Government Attorneys. Every time I have a question, Ed, who's got decades and decades and decades, I don't want to tell you how old he is, of experience with municipal law, always gets back to me. So, are the number of milligrams required to be listed on the package, i.e., cannot exceed zero point 0.4 milligrams? So, currently, I think the CRC at some point is going to require this, but as a marketing gimmick, I see that most of the intoxicated hemp derived products, they tell you exactly what's on the package. Why? Because they know who the audience is. And this audience wants to be able to buy gummies that are 30 milligrams a strip. So most of the packages that you see now, they certainly indicate that. Are they required? As far as I know, John, they're not. But the CRC at some point will make sure that those products that are being sold in the Class 5 dispensaries have labels, et cetera, et cetera. Would you agree with that?
Yes, as they do with all of their products. So, in other words, once again, the best way to think about it is, as of, forgive me, I've covered a lot of states in the nation, but 2022, when we legalized in New Jersey, marijuana became capital C cannabis, and it's not marijuana if it's sold in a dispensary, but if it's on the street, it is lowercase m marijuana. Think about that's what they're looking to do with this product.
Yeah.
It's cannabis. It's sold by the CRE, but for beverages.
So, Mark DePisa, hold on to that question. We're going to really dive into who exactly is going to be doing the enforcement, what kind of fines the
Yeah.
municipality can impose, and of course, our dear Uncle Sam, the state of New Jersey, gets half of those fees. All right, let's see where we are here, John. We've gone over this, and for those who want the presentation and they really want to dive into exactly the stuff that would put most people asleep, they're on the slides here. Um, all right. Okay, so this talks to the beverages a bit, and we don't have to spend too much time, but the total THC limits hemp products to the 0.4% per container, and it limits the intoxicated hemp beverages to a THC limit to 5 milligrams and 10 milligrams of total THC per container.
And Ron,
Um,
let me just go over that one more time
yeah,
because they of course the local municipality is the front line for ABC enforcement. But right now, as of last Monday or today, if you walk into a liquor store, you can see a 50 milligram intoxicating hemp beverage. Initially, that was not the case. It was tethered to April 13th. You will see that 50 milligram in can and don't need to enforce or call the ABC up to May 31st. After May 31st, it should be 10 milligrams. Just forget about the 5 milligram per serving. If you think about that, what does that even mean? It means eventually the label will say that, but you will see and should only see a 10 milligram intoxicating hemp beverage, and I'm pretty certain that in 44 licensees, that's all you'll see because why would you risk a liquor license and a violation? And you can see a 10 milligram THC beverage from the 1st of June till November 13th, unless there's a change between now and then.
unless the
That
liquor lobby is really, really potent and they get this stuff pushed out because, as
what
I mentioned before, it's a $5 billion annual business in Texas. I had no idea.
well
John,
what well
I don't know if I can answer this question. I think it's is it true that the online companies that ship out of state will no longer be allowed to ship to New Jersey? I'm not sure what they're referring to, but I'm going to speculate some type of either beverage, intoxicated beverage, or product.
it
Um,
it breaks down in nuances. It's more that it would depend on where it's going, because you certainly couldn't ship to a smoke shop as of last Monday from any other state, even if even if it doesn't have the same threshold as us, because the only thing it can be done is shipped through the state, right? Because interstate commerce is still protected. We're getting into nuanced questions that make it a little bit more like a CLE. So email us directly on that because I know that's going to break down into making distinctions that I'll make you want to lose the will to live.
All right. I don't think we have to spend, much time on this
Yeah.
particular slide. Just talks about hemp is, it's got the low THC content. It's legal to grow in many countries, including the United States. Potential health benefits, including reducing inflammation. I've tried it, the CBD. I've never gotten any relief, but some folks really do swear by it. And then, of course, marijuana, the plants are shorter, they got broader leaves, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So I think we have beaten this definition to death. And if you read it 6 or 7 times, like John and I have, it will sink in as to what we're talking about. The 0.3% on a dry weight basis, not more than zero point 0.4 milligrams of total THC.
Ron, and the only thing I will say to everybody is this is the distinction. If you look at number one, that's what I mean by a threshold, and it should exceed that. The next slide will be kind of interesting. And when I talk about standards, it's the next three. The reason I say that is if you're enforcing, whether law enforcement or health department, there's more to it than just that first item. You're looking for synthetics also, but that's just too much to go into right now. But I want to put it on your radar. And the whole notion of Ron and I doing this is we feel like there needs to be a lot of education for everyone's benefit out there. Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about some of these dates here, important dates and their impact on businesses selling hemp derived products and the intoxicated hemp beverages. So on the left, this one's huge. January 13th, 2026, no product with any detectable amount of THC may be sold or distributed to a person under 21 years of age. Looks like I wrote in addition, but let's talk about that for a minute. This was a very serious topic. Why? Because some of the vape shops, the gasoline convenience stores, and the smoke shops would sell these intoxicated hemp derived products, a little bag of gummies, to a 15-year-old. And what did he know? He munched half the bag, and mom sent him to the hospital, and then mom called your mayor. This should eliminate this. There are to be no sales to anyone under 21 years of age that has any detectable amount of THC. Um, all right. So with respect to April 13th, John already touched upon this. No unlicensed businesses. Those are the vape shops, the convenience stores attached to a gasoline place can sell any hemp-derived cannabinoid product that exceeds the limits that we've spoken about at nauseum. And there we mentioned again, the hemp-derived cannabinoid products, non-intoxicating, they can be sold by a licensed Class 5 retailer. And although the law is not clear, but I think John would agree with me that those non-intoxicating, the ones that meet the threshold, can be sold at the convenience stores, the vape shops, and the smoke shops. I'm
That's
not
that's a,
sure.
that's exactly right. And it goes back to the idea that the more we all can learn about this in an area where there's not been a lot of good information for you guys for the municipalities, and also it's a topic area that changes. There you got to watch out for false positives, right? Like I've dealt with over the years a number of clients where I've obtained dismissals at both the municipal and the Superior Court level because of the lack of understanding of the nuances and the distinctions. So just to jump into a nuance that you should be aware of, both law enforcement and health department, for what it's worth, the statute does direct the Attorney General to provide enforcement guidance to local law enforcement and municipalities.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, it hasn't been forthcoming. If anybody knows if it has, please put it in the chat.
John, here's a great question for you, and I know you do this work. How does a liquor store become licensed? Well, they need a Class 5 license or some type of derivative, a limited license, and that's something that you do, right?
Yeah, well, how does a liquor store become licensed with a New Jersey alcoholic beverage license? Is an ABC question, but the liquor store right now does not need to be licensed. If right now a liquor store is selling a 50 milligram THC drink, they're able to sell it. There are some requirements that have gone into place by administrative order of the ABC. And then as of May 31st, they can only sell 10 milligram. And right now, as of November 13th, they cannot sell it. If it's extended, if this lives to where you have a very likely scenario, 10 milligram lower level beverages in liquor stores and 50 and 100 milligram beverages and dispensaries, the licensing of that sale will just be under the existing 44 license, retail distribution license, excuse me. In other words, liquor store license. And the sale of the high test will be like other powerful intoxicating products in dispensaries under the auspices of the CRC.
Which means I think her question is, I've got a liquor store and I want to be able to sell all of the intoxicating hemp-derived beverages.
Yeah.
They would need some type of a license from the CRC, right? A
No,
Class 5 retail dispensary license. And although they're not interested in selling cannabis, they want to sell the full spectrum of intoxicated hemp-derived beverages. That's what they have to do, right?
you can't do that. It's only beverages. Hard line between you can't have a dispensary that's also a liquor license premise. It's not allowed.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look at May 31st, 2026. John already touched on this, that the intoxicating hemp-derived beverages, that's the limit again. That's a major change, and you can now issue violations to liquor stores that violate these restrictions, assuming that that bill doesn't pass to extend it for another 2 years. Because right now, as John mentioned, I've got some friends that love the intoxicating hemp-derived beverages. Some of the bottles are 750 milligrams, some pretty potent stuff. All right, so let's see. Is there a statewide fine or up to the which? All right, we'll talk about that later. Okay, next. Some more important dates. John, you want to take this one?
Well, we've already covered that.
Okay.
Yeah, twice. So I would, I won't explain it again. It's in the presentation and recorded.
Yeah.
Just, just
So November
it,
14th, that's it. Intoxicating hemp-derived beverages can no longer be sold in liquor stores. You can issue violations after that point, and we'll see whether or not that that gets extended to 2028. So this was a postcard that the CRC sent out. John got it from one of his clients, and the only reason that we have it up there is that there is a mistake that we'd like to point out. Let's see if this laser pen over here, it says legal hemp contains less than 0.3%. It's actually 0.3% or less.
and the same thing with the 4 milligrams per container. And trust us, when we point this out, it is for raising the issue that everybody in this field struggles with these definitions and the way they're kind of word salad. Even when this statute that we're discussing came out, there was a lot of discussion among like the premier cannabis attorneys in the state. You know, we get online, we know each other, we're friends now, and trying to understand the statute, we were coming up with lots of wrong answers. So, again, back to why we're here and I'm here. We're all in it with you guys. We're all struggling with this. We want to be able to understand it. What we want is a healthy industry. We want safety. We want compliance. I don't mind enforcement. You know, that's fine. I deal with it in ABC, but let's do it not in chaos and a mess. So if you're struggling with it, and everyone is, it's the point of that slide.
Yeah, we are again flying the plane as we are building it. I didn't want to say anything disparaging about the CRC. They got a lot of stuff on their hands, but this was supposed to, somebody asked, can you repeat the error on the postcard? This is supposed to say 0.3% or less, and same thing here, 0.4 milligrams or less. Okay. All right, next slide here. The only reason I put this up here is potential federal future. John, by the way, your video is not on. You may have done that on purpose. I'm not sure.
Oh, I didn't know
Potential.
if it. Okay, go
There
ahead.
you go. All right. Potential federal future regulatory framework. The Hemp Enforcement Modernization and Protection Act was introduced on January 22nd, 2026, and it changes some stuff. It once again changes. John had mentioned that those intoxicating hemp beverages, 10 milligrams, we're going to go up to 30 potentially. Now, who knows if any of this stuff ever gets passed? But I put it out there because, once again, we are flying the plane as we are building it. So, some key federal takeaways. The appropriations bill, that's the bill that is aiming to close this legal federal loophole that allows the hemp-derived intoxicating products to bypass strict regulations. And of course, the next one, we just spoke about it. There's legislative efforts to underway and mitigate the impact of the appropriations bill. Why? Strong lobbying firms, $5 billion industry in Texas, follow the money. And then the future of hemp-derived intoxicating beverages, it depends on the outcome of these legislative efforts and the ability of the industry to adapt. All right, so it appears that we are now going to get into what some folks have been waiting for. How can law enforcement get these illegal, unregulated products that are routinely sold to minors off the shelf? April 13, 2026, if the business is not a licensed liquor store or a licensed CRC cannabis retailer, they're not supposed to be selling those intoxicated hemp-derived products. So are they selling these hemp-derived products that exceed the limits that we've discussed? And how do you know? Well, I've mentioned before that as a marketing best marketing practices, most of these products do indeed boast what the milligrams are. It pulls in a lot of folks when they say, wow, all I need to do is take one strip and that's 30 milligrams or whatever the case may be. So it may be on the product itself. You can ask for a certificate of analysis, or you can have it tested by a licensed cannabis lab. There are a lot of cannabis labs that have been licensed by the CRC. And what I'm hearing from some of my colleagues is that they don't have enough work on their plate. There's not enough yet cannabis being grown in New Jersey to keep them busy or as busy as they would like. So the municipality may be able to work something out where for a reduced fee that they would do some type of testing. So law enforcement can charge them with violations of that section. In addition to that, here's the box that most of the municipal officials, municipal employees are interested in. Health officer or other authorized municipal official can issue a civil penalty of not less than $100 for the first offense, not less than $1,000 for the second offense, not less than $10,000 for a third or subsequent offense. And the penalty is collected and enforced by the penalty enforcement law of 1999. What does that mean? It means you do it through your municipal court. And it's a fairly quick process as long as you've got the evidence that they exceed the levels and they're not supposed to be selling those types of products. All right, so it's okay to impose multiple fines for a single violation as a penalty for the sale of more than one substance or product. All right, so I don't have an answer to, is there an example of proper label? Oh yeah, just Google a certificate of analysis and you will see what some of these look like. They're easily read. There's total THC. So focus in on that. Will we get a copy of this presentation? Yes, I already put my email. I'll do it again at some point. And then Mike says, will law enforcement seek arrests on the workers at the smoke shops or just the owners? I don't think that we are going to get involved with arrests. These are civil penalties. We're looking for money. We're not looking to put anyone in jail. You're going to see one of the slides, however, if the business owner is recalcitrant and continues to sell when they're not allowed to sell, you can actually shut them down. But I don't see your health officer or any other municipal official getting involved. I don't think the police want to be involved with arresting. So I don't think that's off the table. Any thoughts on that, John?
Yeah. Let me add into that it's not mutually exclusive. If you have product that exceeds the threshold or standards, and thus it is unlawful and it's not licensed somewhere appropriately, it's the equivalent, it's a controlled dangerous substance. So that's within the discretion of law enforcement to enforce, and law enforcement at the municipal or the state level.
So I agree 100%. What I'm seeing in practically speaking, the police officers don't even want to get involved with arresting folks that are selling marijuana. So I suspect that they would not want to get involved with arresting folks for the intoxicated hemp-derived products. But what do I know? Can you see, Mike Haggerty says, can you seize the product? Yes, we're going to get into that. You can shut down the shop as well. All right. Anything else there, John, before I move to the next slide?
No.
Good. Thank you. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I see it's 12:45. More local enforcement. Any official authorized to enforce the provisions of the law, your local health codes or consumer protection laws, law enforcement having the authority may issue a summons for a violation. A law enforcement officer, local health official, or other government official from an agency authorized to enforce the law may confiscate any intoxicating hemp beverage, cannabis item, cannabis product, or otherwise substance or product that is sold, offered for sale, or distributed in violation of the law. There's your Caesar. Okay, it's part of the law. More. A penalty recovered under this is recovered in the name of the state. Okay, so it's state of New Jersey, not your municipality, but it's written up by your law enforcement officer, your local health official. It could certainly be the zoning officer. Mike, you could do it. Construction code official. So it's from any agency authorized to enforce the new law. Make sure your ordinances address this stuff. with respect to an enforcement action brought up by one of the municipal officials. Here we go. The state gets half of the VIG. So it gets paid to the treasury of the municipality. The other half goes to the Cannabis Regulatory Enforcement Assistance and Marketplace Modernization Fund. More, a business, and you know, I've thought about this particular slide and I'm going to speculate what it means, but I may need some help. A business found to have committed more than two violations, that's a business, or found to have committed a third or subsequent violation at any individual location within 1 year shall be deemed a public nuisance. We'll go back to that in a minute. A municipality shall have the power to impose restrictions on the operation, including closure of any business determined to constitute a public nuisance. So that's it. You shut them down. You change the locks. What I found confusing on this first block, a business found to have committed more than two violations, and then there's the or. So does that mean maybe there are two businesses with the same name in the municipality, and they've committed more than two? Because then that section goes into or found to have committed a third or subsequent at any individual location. I'm not clear on that, and maybe you're not as well, John. And you know, we'll continue to fly the plane while we're building it, and maybe we'll get some clarity on it. But
I think the distinction is probably business versus location, but it's really nuanced, and maybe we should make sure to hit taxation before we run out of time.
yep, all right. Here we go. Unlawful to sell, distribute that contains the THC in any detectable amount to a person under 21 years of age. And certainly the police officers can write this summons if they're so inclined. More law enforcement. How do you prove a violation? So the sale of an intoxicated hemp beverage must have a certificate of analysis. They have to. And if they don't, there's $100 fine if the liquor store doesn't have one for each container. For intoxicated hemp-derived products, not the beverages, the label, as I've mentioned 3 times, the label usually indicates the amount of total THC. It is a marketing campaign. People's eyes are driven to the numbers on those labels. If not, you'll have to send the product to be tested, and you may be able to work out something with one of the CRC licensed cannabis labs. Oh, here you go, John. This is up your alley. We have come across, here comes the whack-a-mole. We've come across products such as Kratom, if I'm pronouncing that right, Kratom, and mushroom gummies and capsules. Are they going to be addressed?
They're going to be addressed because they're part of the universe of what you're going to encounter with these businesses in your municipality. It's more of a summary question, but let me hit it now and try to be very succinct. Uh, it is because it is something I did want to mention. The You're going to find businesses in your municipalities. First and foremost, you're going to find people that came in as outlaws and they're going out as outlaws. They're not going to change a darn thing about what they do. Some of we all know why. Different reasons, the size of your municipality, whatnot. But you're going to have the same product sold, or there'll be gamesmanship. With it. I'm talking about hemp products. Gamesmanship maybe with packaging. So you're going to be dealing with that. I want to stress you're also going to have businesses that operate lawfully, so be careful of false positives. But what has is going to happen naturally is that they're going to fill the shelf that they remove the intoxicating hemp products from with other product. And right now, I think we meaning all of us in this industry, and dealing with these issues, maybe not in the industry, but dealing with them, there's going to be a whack-a-mole with particular products. There's going to be difficulty with enforcement. Right now, to reduce it to its simple, the Southeast Asian plant, the derivative of kratom itself, the plant is legal in New Jersey and in many states, and there's people who enjoy it and say it's a good thing. I'm not getting into that discussion, but it's absolutely legal and does have a lobby. But in and these stores sometimes sell kratom. But then you get the derivatives of kratom where there's a concentrate out of the datum. Sound familiar? Hemp Delta 8. I don't know if I'm pound for right on with the chemistry, but stay with me. There's a certainly concentrated form, the 7-HO hydroxy, 7-HO, and that stuff is powerful and problematic. And there are two bills pending to make it Schedule 1 in New Jersey, and at the federal level, the FDA has recommended to make it Schedule 1. So that is an issue already. I know for many of you all, it will, I think, reasonably, it's realistic, maybe is the word, to assume we're going to be addressing that. The other part of this is you will see products that are, and again, there's the lawful, the CBD people, the health and wellness. There are mushroom-based products, they call them nootropics, which do not get you high or have nothing to do with psilocybin. But they provide an effect, like almost like I take a brain vitamin in the morning that's a neurostimulator, from Walgreens, and it helps my mind get awake. There's people, nootropic mushrooms are wellness, they're not psilocybin, but you'll see a product in the store usually with a cartoon mushroom on it. I've seen 5-DMT, and that's a question mark. That's all I can tell you. And that's not just a guess. That's drilling down into the lawfulness of it. You probably already encountered them. I think we're all going to be encountering more as we go on.
So, John, it is 12:52. I'm going to blow through this. I want to make sure I get into the taxation. So here are some municipal authority and consumption control legislation that's pending. Municipal authority to establish cannabis-free zones, restricts retailer proximity to schools and places of worship, limits sale of TH products in certain circumstances, increased penalties for cannabis use on public beaches, and then the underage stuff. Temporary detention, parental notification. I don't know if any of this stuff will ever get passed. Restores disorderly person offenses for underage possession, limits criminal liability for law enforcement encounters involving underage possession, which we know is a fourth-degree offense right now. All right, some more legislation. Major revisions to cannabis licensing, CRC authority, municipal ordinances, creates criminal penalties for buying or selling cannabis through unlicensed businesses, authorizes interstate cannabis commerce when legally permissible. All right, so let's very quickly get into some of the tax municipal ramifications, your 2%. All right, so this is, everyone knows this, that has a cannabis business. You got 2% for the cultivator manufacturer, 1% for the wholesaler and the retailer. Okay, the local intoxicating hemp-derived beverage tax, it is 2%. Everyone keeps asking me, can I tax it now? It's got to be in your ordinance. I don't know whether or not an ordinance can be made retroactive to when the state law permitted your town, to charge the 2% on intoxicated hemp-derived beverages. I would think not. I don't know. But the law has been around since October 12th, 2024, and you haven't been collecting the 2%. $5 billion annual business in Texas alone. So it's 2%. Get your ordinances changed.
Ron, I'm going to add one point to that real quick. That reduced to its simple. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of upheaval. But if you asked me, John, just put your money on the line and spin the wheel. I'd say that taxing at the local level, the intoxicating hemp beverages at the liquor stores is probably not a bad idea. I think that tax is not going to stop after November 13th. You might as well get it as soon as possible and anticipate that it will be there in
follow the money,
the future. Yeah.
All right. So this is the law. It's been around since October 12th, 2024. What else do we have here? This basically just says, John's agree. I agree with John. You can collect the 2%. We both think that it's going to get extended, but who knows? There is one other issue that I want all these folks, the municipal officials that have concurrent license holders in their town, meaning John and I own the cultivator, we own the manufacturer, and we own the dispensary in your town. You are entitled to 2% when the cultivator transfers to our manufacturer and when the manufacturer transfers to our dispensary. Now, many cannabis businesses will take the position, well, wait a minute, that's an internal transfer. The value to us, John and I, is zero. Therefore, 2% of zero is what? And I've seen cannabis businesses say we're not paying that. That's wrong. It's a user tax. The legislature made it crystal clear that that 2% is supposed to be paid to the municipality. Check your ordinances, make sure it addresses that. And certainly, I'm sure your borough or city attorneys, they're aware of this when they drafted those ordinances, but many just pulled from the legislation. That's not enough. You really need to dive down and indicate what is the value. Well, it's the market value of when John and I take the raw product, the cannabis cultivator, we send it to the manufacturer to create those gummies, and then we send it to our dispensary all in your town. What is the market value of those? All right, so it is now 12:57. I'm gonna stop there, John. I think we've probably covered enough. See if there's any other questions. I don't want to hold anybody up past the noon hour.
No,
Anything else?
we
Go,
both
John.
put Ron and I just both put our emails in the chat. So I think I put my phone numbers in the first slide, but not my email. So please feel free. And like I said, if you want more of this, we'll do another lunch and learn. And we're thinking about, because this is ongoing. So stay in touch, and we'll try to also.
All right. I would like to thank John for helping me out with this presentation. And once again, I want to thank Lori and Mike for the invitation. You can tell we are highly, no pun intended, into this product. I'll hand it back off to you, Mike. I didn't want to exceed the 1 p.m.
And I appreciate that. And you know, maybe we need to do a brunch and learn that extend it next time around. But we'll see. But I want to. That's my attempt at humor. I'm sorry. I want to thank you both for this and for everyone for joining us. You know, we had over 100 people log in, so obviously a lot of interest. So I think doing it again probably makes a lot of sense. This is an evolving, ongoing issue that it will continue to. New challenges will arise. So, gentlemen, thank you once again. Thank you for everyone joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you
Appreciate
all.
it. And
Yeah,
John's
take care.
available for the private stuff, and I do the municipal stuff. We love to talk cannabis and hemp. Thanks again.
Bye, everybody. Thank you again.